So now that we've talked about all the power and all the possibility that is ingrained with this whole opportunity of playing around with our inner lives, our beliefs, our mental models, and using them to energize ourselves, making our lives more meaningful, our activities more productive, I'm going to sort of talk to you a little and about using this with caution. And the caution really comes again in the form of really making a distinction in our own minds between influence and control. Now, theoretically, we all know the difference between both of these, but to me it is very, very important. So important that I think it can be the single factor that allows us, enables us to use all of the science that we've talked about constructively. Or it can be something that makes us just discard all of this as something that doesn't work, or it can actually land us up in further trouble. Let me tell you why. So, and this is an anecdote, and I do not know how true it is or not, but it sort of makes the point. So I'm going to tell it to you. So when the movie Secret came out, and some of you may have heard of it, some of you may not have heard about it. I'll tell you what it is. So in a nutshell, the movie Secret talks about the law of attraction, and it talks about playing around with our beliefs and imagining and visualizing what we want, affirming the good that's already present, and a lot of that, right? But when this movie, it became a bestseller, the movie as well as a book that came out. But the joke runs that when the movie came out in the United States, the psychiatrists had a boom in their business, and the joke runs that this happened because there were tons of people who saw this movie, who were so inspired, who started visualizing what they wanted, who started imagining the outcomes they wanted, who started focusing on what was working and what they wanted to reinforce, and they did not see it happening. So they visualized a house, but the house didn't come. They visualized something, a spouse behaving amazingly, but that spouse did not overnight start behaving amazingly. And these people got depressed and dejected, and that's why they landed in the couch of shrink. So now, perhaps this is an anecdote, but I think it makes the point. The point it makes is that through all our inner work, what we're trying to do is influence the outcome. Now, the outcome in this case could be our own behavior, it could be our experience, it could be an interaction, it could be an exam result, it could be performance, it could be the behavior of another person, like Pygmalion effect, right? The behavior of a spouse, a boss, a co-worker, a student, a child. Whatever is this outcome, we're trying to influence it, but we cannot control it. When we try to control it, we set ourselves up for disappointment and failure and heartache and heartburn, and we might just chuck all the science away. But the science was never suggesting control. It was only suggesting influence. That's what the science supports, and therefore that's what we need to aim to do. Let's take a very quick example, yeah? So the outcome variable that I'm going to choose is, let's say, my performance in a maths exam, okay? So, math exam performance, okay? So what are the various factors? If you were going to answer a maths exam, or I was going to answer a maths exam, what do you think would be the various factors that would influence this? Yeah, so we could list several, but I'm just going to list a couple here. One of them could be my preparation level. Would my preparation level influence my outcome? Absolutely, yeah? That's why we study. So prep level. Okay. What about my innate ability in maths? Some of us are good, some of us are not so good, So my innate level. Would this influence my outcome? Yes. What about what happened that day morning on the way to the exam hall? My mood, yeah? Maybe something terrible happened. Maybe I was having PMS. Maybe I was not feeling well. Maybe I was upset. Maybe I was happy. Would my mood and emotions, okay, influence my performance? Yeah. I could go on. So I'm just going to, several factors. And we can list them. Now, one of the things that we talked about, all through, is self-efficacy, my own belief of how good I am at maths, right? That's important. So, self-efficacy, okay? Does it influence? Absolutely, we know that through science. That's what we've been talking about this whole lecture, right? That's what the Asian women experiment showed us. But all it showed us was that self-efficacy can influence my math exam performance. So it can up it or down it. But it cannot control, it cannot determine, because there are all these other factors that have nothing to do with my self-efficacy. Right? So, and that's true of most outcomes, most outcome variables. We have several factors that together combine to produce an outcome. And to the extent that we do not have control on all these factors, we will never have control on the outcome. But we will. We can influence the outcome. We have control on what we can do here. So, in a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that let us by all means decide to invest in doing inner work, right? Well, that's what I'm going to advocate, but the choice is up to you. Because I would like to, do some inner work, because I see that it can have an influence on the outcome. But if I cling to the idea, the hypothetical idea that because I'm doing inner work, I need to be able to determine this outcome, I'm setting myself up for heartbreak, heartache, stress, and let down. Because nothing can guarantee that I can determine the outcome. And I think this distinction is very, 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 very crucial to make. Now, sometimes I get asked in classes, so you say that there's no guarantee that if I do all this inner work, I can influence the outcome. And I say, no, I can influence it, I can control the outcome. And I say, no, there is no guarantee. And sometimes people ask me, oh, then can you tell me, what is the extent of this influence? Is it 5%? Is it 50%? Ma'am, is it 90%? I need to know. And I ask them, why do you need to know the percentage? It's because they say we need to know whether it's worth investing it in this inner work or not. And again, the answer to that is I have no answer to give you, because there is no percentage influence. And why is there no percentage influence? Because if you remember the previous diagram, the effect of mental models on our actions, our outcome, on the outcome variables, it's a non-linear effect. There's a feedback loop. It's what happens when there's a feedback loop. It's not like increase this variable x by 5% and I see a linear effect impact on that. It's not a linear impact. It's a feedback loop. It's a non-linear effect. So, which is both good news and bad news, right? The good news is I can't put a number and tell you that this is a range of influence that you have. It's about 20% or 30%. I can give you no such figure. That's the bad news. The good news is that it ramps up. It increases. The more you do inner work, and I say this from experience, seriously, the more you do inner work, the more you see the results, the stronger your beliefs go, the more you're motivated very intrinsically to do that inner work, and the more you see the influence on the outer world. And this loop can become so strong, this loop can really build up so much. There are certain areas in my life where I've become actually very proficient at doing inner work, and I see huge leaps of influence. And there are certain other areas where I haven't done a lot of inner work, because hey, we all have this much time and energy to invest in, right? And in those other areas, I see that the outcome is pretty much determined by external events and what happens. So in certain areas of my life, I feel like life is doing this to me. But there are some other areas in my life where I really feel the sense of mastery and the sense of I am co-creating my experience in these areas of my life. And those are the areas where I have chosen to invest in doing inner work. And I choose these on the basis of what matters to me, what is important to me, my personal values, right? We can't all work at everything. So choose your areas of life that you want to work on, and choose to invest in the inner work. If you want to do that, it is a choice. So it is a choice, right? To me, certain areas of my life are so important that even if I knew in the beginning that I would have just a 1% chance of influencing my experience, I would want to invest in it because it's so important to me. So it needs to, so you need to be interested enough to invest in a certain area of your life. But if you do that, you're going to see the influence level build up. Yeah. Please don't ever fall into the trap of imagining that you can control even when the influence level does build up, because that is the formula for actually heartbreak and stress. This whole idea is very nicely captured in one of the verses in the Bhagavad Gita, which is an Indian text, and at least that's my, so I'm not a Sanskrit scholar, so it is my humble interpretation of this verse, but it's a very popular verse. It's called, so in Sanskrit it says Karmanyevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So and there are several ways you can interpret it, I'm sure, but the way I have learned to interpret it is that I can work on the effort that I put in, which in this case is I can influence. If I can influence something, I want to invest in that, because that's, I have a right to my action, so I can influence in that. But I don't have the right to the fruit or the outcome of the action, is how the verse is sometimes interpreted as. And the way I translate that is, I cannot guarantee an outcome, so I cannot say that I want the outcome to turn out to be X, Y, Z. I can say I desire that and I can invest in it so that I hope for the outcome to be like that. So you can have goals and targets and desires, which is fine, but sort of insisting that this has to turn out the way I want it to, which is where you're sort of trying to stake a claim of ownership over the outcome, say I need to be able to control this. That is a disaster for stress, and it's sort of seems logically not possible, right? Why would we do that? Why would we set ourselves up to expect something that that goes against logic? And that is my interpretation of this. But I think using this whole idea of self-fulfilling prophecy, mental models, confirmation bias, Pygmalion effect, all of that, without making the distinction between influence and control, can lead us down a path where we can get either very disillusioned with the whole process and chuck it out and stop doing inner work, or it can lead us to the psychiatrist's couch where we are, hey, I've been doing this and I'm not seeing the results I want. So it can lead to either extreme. But doing this inner work combined with this nuanced distinction between influence and control can be a very exciting and exhilarating journey. And I hope that you choose to undertake this journey. And I hope if you're already on this journey and if you're already familiar with work, I hope you choose to keep at it and do it in a way that brings out the best in you, that nurtures you, excites you, brings you alive, and wants to make you contribute more and more to this planet and the world that we exist.